Welcome to the January edition of the New and Emerging Special Education Zoom meeting. We've had just a little technical difficulties, so we appreciate you guys bearing with us. But today's focus is going to be behavior. And so our behavior consultant, Doug Smith, is going to lead us in that work. But I'm going to allow each of the consultants just an opportunity to introduce themselves and let you know what the work they do. So I'm Dion Bates, and I'm the Implementation and Improvement Lead.
I'm Stephanie Kidd. I am the math consultant here.
I'm Doug Smith, a behavior consultant.
I'm Vonda Adams. I'm also a math consultant.
And I'm Chastity Craig. I'm a literacy consultant.
Okay. All right, Doug, at this time we're going to kind of let Doug talk to us just a little bit about behavior, and we'll kind of just move through that. At any time, if you would like for us to pause and ask a question, feel free to stop us at any time. We want this to be an open discussion, and you get an opportunity to ask questions or clarifications for anything that you might have. We will have the link on our New and Emerging Teacher Cadre on the Holler and on our Google Drive, as well as the link to this particular PowerPoint slide as we move through that. So you should have access to that after we finish this meeting.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started and try to be short and sweet. Our first, go ahead and thanks.
Okay.
First thing we want to talk about is we're going to be looking at answering those 5 questions. We're going to be looking at what is behavior, what are some of the purposes for behavior, what's the function of behavior, what are some causes of behavior, and how do we teach behavior. So of course we all know behavior is what adults do or what humans do. It is the actions that are observable and measurable, and all behavior is learned. So behavior is observable. That means that what we see, what we hear, what the students are doing, what we're doing as well. It's not a student is angry. That is not a behavior. The behavior would be what are the actions that that student shows that portrays they are angry, such as throwing a book. That would be a behavior. But sitting in a seat that I think they're angry, you can't tell their emotions. Those aren't behaviors, but the actions that are associated with that emotion are the behaviors. Behaviors are measurable. You can count how many times it happens. You can define and describe the behavior in a way that anyone that walks into that classroom would understand this is the behavior of concern or the appropriate or inappropriate behavior that we're looking for. And it is observable, measurable, and we can all agree on that is what that behavior is like. So behavior is defined measurably. It is something that you can observe, and it's something that we can all agree on what something looks like. So the purposes of behavior is one of 2 purposes: to either get something or to avoid something. All behaviors are a way of getting access to a material or access to something or avoiding certain situations. That's only 2 reasons for behavior. Now there are many functions of behavior, and the six most common functions of behavior are to obtain a preferred activity or item, escape or avoidance. A lot of our kids use inappropriate behaviors to be sent out of class because of a skill deficit. It's something that they're not capable of doing. So if I act up.
Oh, we're in. I clicked on that thing that Tracy had.
If a teacher sends me out of the classroom, I avoided having to do the work. So to get away from something or to escape something. Other times students use behaviors to get attention, either from a peer or from adults. So any attention they get is better than no attention at all. So if a student uses inappropriate behavior and they get negative attention, that's better than not giving them any attention. Sometimes, a lot of times with our kids with disabilities or students with disabilities, they use behavior to communicate. How many times do we get frustrated with our students because they're acting in a way that they don't know how to express their emotions or their feelings or what's bothering them, so they start acting out in order to communicate those feelings to us. So sometimes it's their inability to communicate what's going on with them, so they use inappropriate behaviors for that. Other times it is for self-stimulation. They just act out because that behavior makes them feel good. And then another reason could be for control or power. You know, sometimes if a young person acts out a certain way, then they feel like they have control of the situation. So they then take ownership of that, and it helps them gain control and power over the situation. So one thing that you got to be cautious with is
the getting into the power struggle. We're having technical difficulties. Please stand by. I'm having some inappropriate behaviors on our end. Can
Go
you
out. You were gonna have to go out. Just go all the way out there. Let's go all the way out.
Hello? Hello?
All right, I think we're back. All right, sorry. Thank you for being calm and sticking with us there. So what are some causes of behavior? If we look at causes of behavior, the behaviors range from a lot of different things that influence our students' behaviors. Some of those are carrying things that they bring with them. Some of them are carryover behaviors that carries over from setting to setting. Some of them are tune-in behaviors or things that remind them of a past event. Then all our kids carry what we like to call in the trauma side of the education is an invisible backpack or suitcase or luggage, whatever you want to call it. These are all the things that have happened to these kids in their life up to the point that you have them, that they carry with them every day. And some things that we can and some, that we can't see, but it's still things that influences their attitudes, influences the way they think, influences their abilities to cope, and so it influences their behaviors. And then we also look at adverse childhood experiences and traumas, and then I think some ladies are going to chime in on some of these. For instance, I'll just speak briefly about carry-in behaviors. Carry-in behaviors are those things that the kids bring with them. It may be something that happened to them on the bus ride to school, or maybe they had an argument with mom that morning before they got on the bus or before they got to school. It could be that, and in our world, it's often happens. It could be that the cops were at the house at 3 o'clock in the morning trying to calm folks down so they didn't get any sleep. So some of those things that they bring into our setting or into the school environment with them, those are carry-in behaviors, things that they bring with them in order that makes them act in certain ways.
It also could be a witness to a violence that they've had the night before with mom and dad. Dad's hitting mom because he's drunk, or vice versa, mom's hitting dad. Those kind of things that they're having to deal with, or dealing with a family member who's been upset.
Good.
As far as the carry over,
Yes, carry over.
we
Carry over things that they carry from the environment
Okay.
within our control.
okay. For an example, the carry over is within the school setting or within the setting that you have them. One example that is kind of vivid in my mind that I have witnessed recently is a child would have a good day except for one class period, and after looking at the kind of your ABC, the chart, then it was right after lunch. So it was not necessarily the classroom, it was because in lunch he was having some it was less structured. He really didn't have enough social skills to have an appropriate lunch time, so he was getting in trouble or called down sometimes at lunch, or having some arguments or words back and forth with other students in the cafeteria, so it was kind of getting him upset. And then right after lunch, he was walking into this class, and then he would end up, that's where he would get called down or lose his break or get in trouble. So we kind of finally tied into that it was that, and that would be a good example of carryover.
Good, thank you. Tune-in behaviors are those things that remind kids of past experiences. It could be a sound, could be a bell ringing, a smell, color, certain color. I had some kids when I was in the classroom that tell me, you're wearing red today, so the kid would say, I'm going to have a bad day. And yes, sure enough, before the day was over, he'd had a bad day because the color red reminded him of something that happened in the past, and he acted out because of that tune-in or those reminders. So those are just some of the causes or where some of the behaviors may come from. So how do we teach behavior? How do we teach kids how we want them to act or how we want them to behave? Just like any other material or any other subject you teach, you have to teach them those behaviors. The first thing you have to do is you need to develop your rules and expectations collaboratively as a group with your students. Put your rules and expectations posted in student-friendly language so that the kids understand what they are. And once you teach them or come up with your rules and expectations, you have to continue teaching those. You have to model what that behavior looks like. You have to practice what that behavior looks like. You have to teach the behavior to those kids, provide praise and corrective feedback as necessary, then also review your expectations, remind them after breaks, hopefully when you went back to school this week, you reminded your kids of, your students of the expectations or the rules that you have in your classroom. You may have did a lesson that reviewed those and then retaught those rules. And then revisit those as often as necessary. You know, a lot of times our kids, yeah, we got it. They can read the rules, but did we actually teach them what that behavior looked like? So again, with like any other materials, you have to teach those behaviors and those appropriate behaviors that you want to see. With a lot of our trainings, we talk about examples and non-examples. It's probably not a good idea to teach a kid or show a kid a non-example of a behavior rule because that's what you're going to get, the non-examples.
I found that when we were developing rules in my classroom that it was good for the kids to give me a reason for why we needed that rule. They always need a purpose for why we need to have this rule. And normally it's because of safety or because to improve instruction. So not only did we develop them collaboratively, but we would talk about why we needed that rule.
And, you know, developing rules collaboratively, obviously we can't do that all the time, but having kids having a voice in developing rules helps with buy-in. Kids are more likely to follow the behavior if they feel like they're part of that decision making.
And a lot of times with our PBIS schools, you know, you may have your expectations as be safe, be kind, be responsible, or be safe, be respectful, be responsible. Whatever those big rocks are or your anchors are, bring those into your classroom so that you're enforcing those big rocks or those anchors throughout the school environment, but inside your classroom as well. And so what would it look like to be safe in the classroom? What would it look like to be responsible and be respectful in the classroom? And you also have to teach what that looks like in the hallway, what that looks like in the cafeteria, what that looks like in the library, what it looks like in the gym, what it looks like on the bus, and throughout the whole school environment. So just remember, teach, review, revisit, remind, reteach, and repeat as often as much as necessary. Next thing we're going to be looking at briefly will be the ABCs of behavior, and I'm sure we've all heard the antecedent, behavior, and consequence. So this is probably just going to be a quick review. So the behavior course that we're looking at it as an incident that something either triggered or set into motion. So the behavior is the action or what the student actually does. It's observable and measurable. So the antecedent is what happens immediately before that behavior. It comes before that behavior. An antecedent could be something as simple as asking a student to do something, get your books open, or line up. That could be an antecedent to an inappropriate or appropriate behavior. And then your consequence, of course, is how you respond to that behavior. It's not necessarily a punishment, but it's just a response to the behavior that you've seen. For instance, if we tell a student to sit down in their seat and they continue standing and you walk over to them without saying anything, and then they sit down. The consequence of that behavior was you provided that student with that proximity, so you went closer to them. And without saying anything, it wasn't punitive, it wasn't for punishment, but they sat down, so that was the consequence of that behavior. They got that attention. So when we're looking at the ABCs, the behavior is what the student does. The consequence is how do we respond to that behavior? Not necessarily what the student does, but how is the folks around them in the environment, how do they respond to that behavior? And that consequence sets in place another antecedent for another behavior, another consequence, and this cycle repeats itself.
That would help you identify what it would help you eliminate. That's kind of the purpose of this. That was taught on one that is a common one, and I'd like to mention is that if your consequence, so say the antecedent was he was asked to get his MacBook out, and then the behavior is he slammed the book on the floor or he made a comment, and if the consequence was that he was sent out of the classroom or sent to the office or sent to the resource room, So what happened is he got out of that situation. If he's low in math or he struggles in math, then he might be getting what he's wanting. So that might be something you want to look at, because I see that as a common thing that happens, and that kids learn very quickly, that they would rather act up and get out of a reading class or a math class, and so that they wouldn't be embarrassed, that they wouldn't know how to do what's being asked of them to do as far as the academic task.
And as far as the ABCs, antecedent behavior consequence, Ms. Chastity, thank you. That leads back into what is that function of that behavior. And remember, we talked about 6 functions for behavior. And so in that situation, the student was escaping or avoiding that classroom. So that goes back to the functions of the behavior. So that behavior's action that the student takes, antecedent, what happens immediately before that behavior, and the consequence is how you respond to that student's behavior. And it's your actions most of the time. So we're going forward. All right. So this is something I've been reading about and studying a little bit. It's called, teaching behavior using circles. And so this goes back to, if you want to look up more information on circles and using this technique, I'll give you some ideas and some basics of circles, but this is part of restorative justice. And it looks at, instead of, just disciplining students and getting them out of school or out of class or whatever, it takes into account that the student has caused some type of harm to the environment. It may have been toward another student, it may have been toward staff, it may have been toward something in the environment. So we're using circles and restorative justice or restorative practices in order to look at ways that we can repair the harm and correct the wrong that has been done. And so so the circles, then there's some resources at the end of this that you can go and find out more about circles. But so what are circles? Circles are basically what it says. You put your students in a circle and you have conversations with those kids. Circles are a structured way to bring people together, and it helps build community, fosters a sense of respect and equality among speakers. When we have our staff meetings here, we sit around this table, and then we got a circle outside this table, and everyone takes a turn and they speak as we go around the circle. So it's like I think one time it was called a campfire. So everyone has a chance to speak and talk, and they usually have a time limit and so forth and so on. So some principles of circles are that they respect for people's personal experiences and needs and feelings, and it's an opportunity for all voices to be heard. And so when we talk about the basics of the circle, you'll see what we're talking about briefly. So when we're doing the circle basics, you have a circle facilitator, which may start out being the teacher at the beginning. You will be the circle facilitator. But once you get more used to using circles or doing these activities with your students, then they could possibly call a circle themselves and have one of those students be the facilitator. But from the beginning, you would want to be the facilitator or the person that decided, all right, this is the topic we're going to talk about and how we're going to use this circle. Also, you're going to have a setting. So, of course, you put your kids' chairs in a circle, or you could have them sit on the floor if you want to, if you're comfortable doing that. But just what's comfortable for you and what's comfortable for the students, and make sure that you can see everyone and everyone can be seen and everyone can be heard. Then you're going to have a centerpiece. For instance, in our room here, we got the soapbox. When someone has something that is their soapbox, as you want to call it, that's the centerpiece. So a centerpiece could be something that was pertaining to the lesson for the day, or it could be something that is appropriate for your classroom. You may have a centerpiece, maybe the mascot, or you could get real creative and have a campfire if you want to, as a centerpiece. But the centerpiece is somewhere that the kids can focus on when they're not talking, they're not interacting. And it's also just a place to rest their thoughts and gather their thoughts instead of staring at someone with that uncomfortable eye contact that we sometimes make. Then you have a talking piece. And this is an important part of the circle. The talking piece is basically something that you would hold. For instance, our snowman could be our talking piece. If I have the snowman, I'm the one that's talking, everyone else is listening. You're not interrupting me. I'd have my couple minutes to speak, and then I would pass it. And the talking piece would go clockwise or counterclockwise. Either way, they recommend clockwise, but I don't see what difference it makes. But as I have the talking piece, I pass it to the person beside me. And when I pass it to the person beside me, they can either comment or they can say pass, and then they can pass it on to the next person. And you'll probably get a lot of passes the first time that you do this, the first 2 or 3 times. But you can limit those to, all right, you get 2 passes or you get 1 pass. And as the talking piece comes all the way around, if you get to pass again, if you've already used your 1 pass, then you have to speak it the next time around. So that's the talking piece. And it's not to be passed from me over to Dion or throw it across the circle or whatever. So it is to be passed to the person beside you. That allows everyone an opportunity to speak, and it allows everyone an opportunity to be heard. So you probably want something that will be a little sturdy, because just for the fact that little fellows may drop them. So our snowman's kind of fragile. We don't want him to fall and bust off. Yeah, there he goes. All right, so the talking piece. Also, with the talking piece, it could be something that's representative or important to the classroom as well. It could be, again, like I said, a mascot or something like that, something that has important meaning to the classroom setting itself. Also, you're going to have shared agreements within your circle time. And those could be, again, linked back to your PBIS expectations. Be respectful, be responsible, and be safe. What does it look like in a circle to be respectful? You're listening, you're making eye contact, you're using listening with respect. There's a fancy word for it. I can't remember it now. I'll come up with it. But anyway, so you're sharing those ideals and information with each other within that circle, and you're being kind and being respectful. And then once you come up with these shared agreements, they should be posted on the wall somewhere or somewhere in the classroom where the students can see what those agreements are while you're doing your circle. And if someone starts being silly or goofy or acting up, whatever, then you can remind them, okay, is this our shared agreements? Is this being respectful? Active listening. Are you using active listening? That was the fancy word I was looking for. Fancy. Active listening when you're talking in the circle and you're sharing that information. Then also you can have an opening and a closing. The recommendation is that you do some type of mindfulness activity as an opening to the circle. Everyone think about, look around the classroom. What are 3 things that you could hear? What are 2 things that you see? What's 1 thing that you could smell? And then, all right, so today's circle, and then introduce the topic of your circle. Also, at the end or the closing, you can do a simple closing, what was, say, an ending or a greeting. Beginning could be a greeting in another language if you know the other language. Give your neighbor a high five or fist bump or whatever. So those could be an opening. You can do a closing as well. You can do 3 grows and 3 glows, or 2 things exciting that happened today, so forth and so on. Try to keep them positive, because some of these circles may get into some stuff that's difficult to talk about. So some types of circles, or for reasons for circles, there's many different reasons, but some of them are, and I'll just list a few of them or talk about a few of them, value circles. And value circles promote high personal values, and talking about those values and how you put them into action into the classroom. The process lays the foundation for relationship building, which circles, and we all know the importance of relationship building within not just our students, but within staff and students as well. So all behavior hinges off, not all, but the majority of your behaviors, appropriate behaviors, hinges off that relationship that you have and you build with your students within your classroom. Guidelines and expectation circles. Those could be the ones that when you first start school, or when you go back or we first start implementing circles, we could talk about. These are our rules or expectations for the classroom. These are what I expect of you. This is, can we all discuss these, and what are some ideas that we can come up with? And then you can do some charting with that as well. But everyone has an opportunity to voice their opinion and let you know what they're thinking about and how they think the school and classroom run smoothly. You can do a morning check-in circle, which is just short, quick, simple. Hey, good morning. What's 1 thing you're looking forward to today? It could be a topic, or just give someone a high five. Say good morning to everyone. Just greet the kids as they come in. So it's just readiness to learn, and it's just an opportunity to share. Now, you can do circles every day, or you can do them every other day, you can do them once a week, so forth and so on. When I was in the classroom, my students, I'd start out with 6 or 8 kids, and we would do a circle. I didn't realize that's what we were doing at the time, 20-some years ago or whatever, but we would meet on Monday morning, and they were all excited to come back to school, believe that. So just to see me is what it was, I know. So we would talk about what we did over the weekend. And, you know, if one kid, he didn't want to say anything, or she didn't want to say anything, I'd let them pass. And then once they heard everyone else speak, then they could come up with something that maybe they did, you know, and I made a big deal of how their weekend was, because, you know, it was really awesome that they came back and was willing to share what they did over the weekend. So just build that relationship, and it got them in the mood to working together and understanding that not everyone's the same. Not everyone does the same exact thing. So, you know, maybe I can learn something or a new hobby or new experience. So morning check-in circles are pretty cool. And then at the end of the day, check out circles. These are circles, just quick reflection on how the day went. You can do those on what are some things. One thing I enjoyed in class today was, and they can tell you what's something that they enjoyed. Oh, our snowman fell. They can do one challenge for me today in the classroom. What was something difficult that we learned today that I may need better practice or more practice with? And one word that describes how I'm feeling right now. And, you know, so you can kind of gauge, you can do that one at the beginning, those morning circles as well, to kind of gauge what kind of day that you're going to have and how you're going to have that young person turn around. There's several other things that you can use circles for. Celebrations, you can use circles for talking issues, or talking and issues circles. If something comes up, you had an incident in the cafeteria, as soon as you get back from lunch, you hear about it, and it's all right at the circle. All right, it's been brought to my knowledge that this expectation wasn't followed in the cafeteria. And without the kids not having to tattle on each other or tell on each other or whatever, they could discuss what that expectation was, and, well, yeah, we did that, or no, we didn't quite follow that expectation, so what can we do to make this situation better in the next time around? So, but there's a resource that I'll get to in a little bit that talks about circles, and so go out there and find that information. It's really cool information, and I'm not going to tell you what my peers told me I was accused me of being, so we'll talk about that privately.
Does anybody have any questions at this time, or want the clarifications or anything about to Doug about the use of circles and the function of circles and how those might look in your classroom?
Does anyone use circles or is using circles? All right, cool. All right, let's go on. Okay, so the next thing we want to look at a little bit is social emotional learning. And today, in fact, it was mentioned that a lot of times our students are lacking in social emotional learning because they don't show, our culture has a difficult time with us showing empathy. And so social emotional learning is an opportunity for us as educators to instill empathy and help promote empathy with the kids that we work with. So social emotional learning is, you got to remember, the kids are developing socially and emotionally the same that they are academically. And if we don't tap into that social and emotional learning, then the academics are going to, they're going to suffer. So we need to look at social and emotional learning. Some of them key skills is self-awareness. That's recognition of your own emotions, your own personal goals and values. Also, you have self-management, which regulation of your own emotions and behaviors. So self-awareness is recognition of your emotions, and self-management is regulation of those emotions. Social awareness is understanding of and compassion for others' backgrounds or cultures. Relationship skills, ability to establish and maintain healthy relationships, and responsible decision making, making positive choices involving one's own behavior. So one of the things, these 5 skills are essential for success in virtually every area of life, from education to employment and family and community relationships. So if you're not teaching students self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, building relationships, and making responsible decisions, are we preparing these students to go out into the real world and get a job? So, and that's one thing that employers are looking at. You know, do our kids and our students have those, what are they called, soft skills, to be able to work together in teams, to be able to work together and set goals to accomplish a project. So are our students able to regulate their emotions? A lot of times our kids get upset or angry if they're not the lead, and then what happens? The whole project or the assignment falls apart. So we have to teach those young people how to regulate those emotions. And we got to teach them at an early age. We have to teach them what it feels like inside and outside the body to be angry or to be upset or to be sad. And so there's it's just different ways that we can do that. So some ways that we can do that are start with the check-in. You can do the circles, the morning check-in circles, to gauge where our kids are that morning. Or you could just do, I know you've seen videos where teachers have on outside the door, you want a fist bump, a high five, or a hug when they come into the classroom. Just make that connection on a daily basis with every student that comes into your classroom. Just have that contact with them. Start them off with a warm greeting and welcome them to your classroom. Teach your kids to work in partnerships. Give them lots of opportunities to work within a group, to work with partners. Working with a partner helps them learn to cooperate, and it builds community in your classroom. So have them working together. You can group, you can partner them up, yourself, or you can let them have that opportunity to decide who they want to work with occasionally. But it's highly recommended that you pick those partners. And then when we get into this, one of the resources that talks about buddy up and how you're going to use that partner throughout the day. Teach them how to work in a group, provide group assignments, and provide them, each student a job in that group assignment. One of them, science class, I've seen it for a lot. You have a recorder, you have a material gatherer, call them a gopher, whatever you want to call them. Then you'd have a reporter who reports out what it is. You'd have maybe a graphic person that illustrates the graphics, so forth and so on. So make sure that while they're in a group, that they have a job or an opportunity to contribute to that group. And then if it's a kid that has difficulty with reading, but they're great at artwork or drawing or illustrating, use that kid's strength to illustrate for that group, because that helps build that self-confidence, helps build that relationship skills within that group as well. Also practice with lots of role playing. Sometimes you got to put yourself in other people's shoes to understand the situation you're going through. And that was mentioned earlier today at a meeting that we had. So what would it be like? I tell you my story and you tell me your story, then I tell your story from my point of view and how you told it to me. So you put yourself in that other person's shoes. And then allow time for talk. A lot of times kids got to talk and have to collaborate and cooperate and discuss things. So there's several different ways that you can incorporate social emotional learning into the day. And I think there is an article in either Edutopia or Mindshift about it's 21 ways to incorporate social emotional learning throughout the day. So that may be an article or resource that you may want to look at.
And I think actually we maybe could even give them a link when we archive this on the holler, so we can put the link to that article too, Doug.
Miss Dion may be able to do that. I have to call my people. Any questions? Awesome, thank you. Okay, so here's some free, keyword is free, don't cost you a penny, social and emotional learning resources. The first one is Sanford Harmony. It is pre-K through 6. All you have to do is you go to the link that's on here or type in Sanford Harmony, sign up, you create a username and a password, and it's free. There's no cost at all. There's no cost. Well, I'm not saying there'll never be any cost, but as of right now, there's no cost at all. And what you can do is when you go in there to a lesson, download that onto your computer, then you won't have to worry about paying for it because you got the free one. So it is free. It's pre-K through 6, and it does start out with like a circle ideal, a meet up, and then a buddy up. And then and we'll go to that here in just a minute, just kind of give you an example of it. But don't forget your username or password because they don't keep up with it, and I've already experienced that. So write it down, please. The next one is the Milwaukee Public Schools Social Academic Instructional Groups. And these lessons are built for Milwaukee Public Schools, but they're all there for you to use. They're free as well. They're broken into 2 groups or 2 themes, or classroom survival skills and emotional management skills. And like I said, it is K through 12. The high school ones are a little bit different, but the K through 6, I think, are pretty much every bit of that's there broken down to you. Now, they rely heavily on skill streaming guides. So if you got a certain age group, you may want to invest in a skill streaming book for that age group, which the guides have lots and lots of lessons that are available and free resources as well. So the Milwaukee Public Schools is, like I said, if you type in Milwaukee K through K-12, well, there's the link. It should work there. And then the last link is Overcoming Obstacles. And Overcoming Obstacles is another free resource. It is, I think it is elementary, middle, and high school level curriculum. It's a life skills curriculum. It's begins with 3 fundamental skills on which all other skills are built, and that is communication, decision making, and goal setting. And you can either use to teach the curriculum from beginning to end, or you can go into there and decide which lessons I want to use or which lessons you want to do. And then those will come up, and you can download those and like I said, save them to your laptop or save them to a flash drive or whatever, and it's free. I've had this. All you have to do is go set up an account with them as well, and like I said, there's no charge for those. So if we want to, we'll go to let's try the Sanford Harmony one, the top one up there, real quick.
I may have to step over here and use it, Doug.
If you want to. Go over to the online learning portal. And these folks, these resources are out there, so please use those. Over here to over to try this today. See where the Z, as they call him, down under Z it says everyday practices. If you scroll down to Meetup, click on Meetup. Now it may have to ask you to sign in again. So all right, so this is an overview. This gives you your goals, your learning objectives, what you do as a staff or educator. It also tells you the steps in setting up a meetup. A meetup, like I said, is basically a circle where your kids meet that morning and discuss how the day's going to go, what are some things that you did, or what are, whatever you want as that meetup topic. And then again, like I said, this is free. The materials I think, are scripted. So it tells you what to say and how long it's going to take to do a lesson. So this, like I said, it's a free resource. So please use this resource. Then go back to dashboard, I guess, or curriculum. I don't know. So and then you can do like Unit 2, empathy and critical thinking. So if you go social-emotional learning units, click on it, or whichever one you want to use. And you can use them in order from do one first, however you want to use it. So it should take you to the empathy and critical thinking unit. And then again, it's recognizing feelings. So if you click on lesson 2.1, when you click on it, it'll ask you to download it. And then when you download it, gives you the materials that you need, supplemental activities, lesson goals, objectives, concepts, whatever you need, it is there available. And like I said, it's free, don't cost a penny. So that's a really good one. So free K through 6. Please look into that and use that if you wish. So let's go to one of the other ones. If we can try out the overcoming obstacles so the folks can see what it looks like.
So we'll close that one.
All right. And then again, this,
Uh-uh.
you went too far. Back one more. All right. And again, this is a free resource. On this one, it come up as, go over to what it says menu, I think. Well, you'll probably have to go to learn more first. Register and log in.
Here.
No, up to the menu. Down to, up to register and log in. So my email, and then, then the password. And if you want to use my email, that's fine. Get into it, but create your own. The password is capital T, as in, and then it's teacher 20. But if you would go over to, we're already in a middle school curriculum, you could go elementary 3 through 5, you could go high school curriculum, go up to the high school curriculum, click on it, in case we got any high school teachers. Then you can go down into whatever you want, communication skills, decision-making skills. So click on any of them.
Master decisions.
So yeah, if you click on that, lesson 1, starting the decision-making process, then it brings up the lesson, what it looks like, the objectives, the materials you need. And then, like I said, just then after that, it is the script, what you say, and how you talk through the lesson. So you probably have to double click on it or whatever to get it come up so you can download it. So, but like I said, they're all there, folks. So please go and use those. They're free of charge. Just set up an email or an account. So.
And I just, I mean, here I'm looking at this. This is the first time I'm looking at this as well, and it's just awesome. And I'm just sitting here thinking, oh my goodness, I wish I would have known about this when I was in the classroom. You could have definitely used this for kids that have behavior to implement your behavior goals or your social goals on your IEPs, as well as, I mean, it's great for all students, but especially those of you, because I know there's been times that they want you, so-and-so, like, oh my goodness, they need social skills, they need extra time learning this or that, and you have no idea where to go or what to even pull from. So this will definitely be a wonderful resource for you to be able to do that.
And this one is one that we looked at earlier. This is a kindergarten listening skills one, I think is what it is. So like I said, they're all available. It's all there. And then it's in French and Spanish and several other languages as well. So it's a good resource, good information. You just got to put the time in to get the materials and do the lesson. I mean, you know, that's the difficult part. You have to be willing to do those lessons. And you can do those, you know, couple 5-10 minutes or whatever. It gives you the time frame on how long the lesson should be and so forth and so on. So those are, like I said, some free resources. Please use them. Please share that information with your colleagues, whoever you think can find it useful. And then the other one is just the Milwaukee Public Schools. That will take you straight to the part of the website, Social Academic Instruction Groups. You go down to where it says Circle Highlights, then there's water circles, and then circles for social academic. So this is basically where I got my information from. So it tells you or gives you an idea of how to set up circles and what they should look like. So it's a free resource as well. If we go out of the circles and you scan them down a little bit farther or scroll them down a little bit farther, if you look at, go on down please. Classroom survival skills, grades 1 through 3, grades 4 through 5, and then down there's emotional management lessons for grades 1K through 8 as well. So if you click on one of those, it'll expand, and then you can click on the lesson that you want to use. And it references some resources that we may not have available, but you can adapt those resources or make changes to suit your needs. So again, free resource, please use those.
I know sometimes you feel like that you don't have time to do this type of lesson, because I know that you guys are pressured to implement academic goals and with the co-teaching. But like Doug said earlier, if you do not address this deficit with the social emotional, you're not even going to get to the academic. So it would be very important to take 10 minutes if you have even if it's a 30-minute walk twice a week, which, you know, it's important to just a simple couple of these strategies, and it will go a long way because in all kids, whether they have an IEP goal, behavior, or social emotional, they all would benefit from it if I would do it with all my kids because I mean I'm just sitting here going, I'm in awe. I think it's good.
And so, any questions on those? And with overcoming obstacles, if you have difficulty, the Apple one, what are those called? Mac, my Macintosh was open with Safari, so I had to download Chrome, and then it would open again. For some reason, Safari wouldn't open. So, and if you do have difficulty and you can't get in the website or whatever, just send me an email and I'll download it and shoot it to you in an email, whatever lesson or whatever grade level you want or whatever. So I'll help you out as much as I can. Next, we got a little video I want to show, and then we'll yep. We try not to black.
Hey, Mr. Keel! Did you see that? Why would somebody do that?
Please go into the classroom, no talking, quietly.
Hey, Miss Meredith, how you doing?
We need you inside.
How do you think that makes us feel? I forgot my number.
What's your name?
Jordan?
What's your last name?
Carter?
Go ahead.
School is hard enough.
Come on in, sit down quietly at your desk, and begin writing.
This kind of stuff just makes it harder.
Quietly, please. Who's talking? Is it you, Sophie? Don't let it be you.
Don't believe me?
Sophie,
Please just watch.
I'm not up here for me, I'm up here for you. Pay attention. Okay? Now somebody answer me. Somebody needs to answer me really fast.
Every time we're ignored or yelled at or silenced, the teacher takes away what's possible.
No horseplay, no running, and especially no talking.
Moment by moment.
Mr. Garrity, your student's behavior yesterday in the lunchroom, it was terrible. Next time, silent lunch.
Did you hear that? Stay in line and catch a bubble. I'm not playing.
If this is education, we're in trouble. Bye, Miss McGarrity. Frederick Douglass said, once you learn to read, you'll be forever free. The way it is now, 2 of the 3 of us will never be able to really read. It doesn't have to be this way.
Hey, Jordan, how you doing?
Good.
Good.
Everyone we meet throughout our day can make a difference.
I've been waiting for you to arrive.
All the difference.
How are you? Good, how are you? Great. Hi, Jordan. Bye, Jason.
Good morning, Jordan.
How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. How are you?
Good.
Go ahead and put your number in.
Talk with us, not at us.
That's okay. I'll look it up for you. Go ahead, sweetheart.
Okay.
All right.
Teach us what we need to know. That's how we get smarter.
Well, good morning, Sophie, Janicia, and Jordan.
And when you talk with us and teach us, give us bigger and bigger words.
Now what I'd like you to do, children, is turn around and converse with your neighbor and discuss where the mother might have gone.
Words that we can use to read and understand.
She is great for eagles, so she hunts at night.
And that will take us places we can never reach without you.
Remember, we're entering the learning zone. Now, how can we show our respect to the children and teachers who are working?
We can walk quietly.
Yes. Okay, kids, so what I'd like you to do is continue writing your narrative, documenting your emotions if you were the baby owl and your mother abandoned you in the nest.
What can you do? Learn all that you can so that you can challenge us to be our best.
You would have stayed and assisted them in whatever they needed.
Share yourself with us and show us how to share ourselves with others. Give us courage. Give us compassion. Help us find our own voices so we can become who we are meant to be. Why would you want to silence us?
we kind of, rolled everything into a little together there, the bus drivers, they got onto the bus, a warm welcome, hey, glad to see you, we got into the classroom, as they arrived, the bus school administrator met them at the door, called them by name, greeted them, the students, when they came into the classroom, the teacher greeted them as well. Plus another thing, a couple things, that I talked about and didn't really focus on, but she reviewed, we're entering the learning zone. How can we show respect? What are our expectations in the learning zone? And that re-emphasized those PBIS expectations that they have for classroom procedures. And so, and just the little fellow was really, kind of positive throughout the day, even when they were blowing him off or, ignoring him and stuff. He still had a positive outlook on things. He still kept trying. Just a little something. I'll let everybody say thank you and bye. You got any questions?